Chris Gleeson started Glee Coffee Roasters with his brother Ben. They live and breathe specialty coffee. They know coffee is central to every good day. Glee's promise is to source, roast, brew and pour each cup of coffee with the utmost care, and because of that, they only work with ethically sourced beans. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having us.
Welcome, mate.
Milk or no milk?
No milk. Black like my soul. It's very, very dark there.
How do you have it though? Tiny espresso or the long black? How do you have it?
Well, right now, I've recovered from milk. I used to have 14 lattes a day. That was like when I was first getting into the industry, and that was because I was making coffee for other people, like in a showroom. And so I'd make them, one for them, one for me, selling them coffee machines. And so now I went way away from milk. And I now just drink a double espresso every chance I get. So,
Are there still 14 a day in there?
no, I'd be at about if you a double espresso is like 2 standard drinks, and so I'm probably hitting about 10 standard drinks a day.
Wow. And before you owned a coffee business, was that the thing as well? Like still 14 coffees?
Well, that was when I was in a employment space in coffee. Before then, I was probably on probably just one a day before them, and then off I went. I got the bug for it, fell in love with it, and the rest is history.
You talked about a milk addiction there. There appears to be a bit of a caffeine addiction.
100%.
When did that begin? When did the love of coffee start?
The love of coffee kicked off for me. Originally, I was anti-caffeine and anti-coffee. As a young adult, I was probably 18 years old, 19, and my brother Ben had fallen in love with coffee and bought a little Krups coffee machine, and he had some pre-ground coffee, and he was talking all through it. And my rhetoric was always, why would you want to make yourself drink a beverage that you don't like? It's like you're forcing yourself to like something bitter. It's not a nice drink. And he says, no, it can be good. And anyway, and we were standing there one day and I was debating it, and he literally poured espresso over a spoon. I wasn't watching him as he was doing it. And then he stuck it in my mouth while I was objecting. Just put that spoon straight in my mouth with the coffee on it. And I was like, oh, this is the most disgusting thing I've ever tasted. Spat it out. And then he just finished steaming the milk for a flat white. He says, now drink this. And I drank the flat white and I went, oh, this is heavenly. This is the best thing I've ever tasted. And so from there, I was pretty hooked on a cup of joe every day, and then eventually moved into the industry and ended up, I think the longer you're in the coffee industry, the more likely you'll end up on black coffee, because it is a big tax on your body trying to digest and process.
He's lactose intolerant too. So.
Yeah, I was. I'm back in the game now, but I can have
you'll
ice
have
cream.
milk elsewhere, but not with coffee.
Oh, ice cream, man. Ben and Jerry's, right? So yeah, that was the story of getting into it. I was forced.
So going from no coffee to addicted to coffee,
Yep.
to then starting a roasting business. How do you go from one extreme to the other?
Well, yeah, I think it was a natural progression for me from that moment there. I got into coffee, and my life was probably a bit of a wreck, to be honest. Whose life is really sorted out when you're 18, 19 years old? But I had, done pretty poorly at school, and I've always showed promise. That's what my teacher said. Then I decided that I would enroll in a journalism course, and got so far in a journalism course, I think it was into semester 3, and got to the ethics side of it, and I couldn't do it the way I was being mentored or taught in that space. I just walked out of the class. I tried the next year, went through again to try to do it again, got to the same class. I couldn't stomach it. I walked out. I had a big fight with the teacher in the class, and walked out. I did a weird thing, like threw my phone in the bin, like deleted all my contacts, my girlfriend in Sydney. Like it was like a little bit of a weird mental breakdown. Jumped on a train, went home, and then just found a job back in retail. Like I Up to that point, I'd always been able to like sell jeans. And so I went and worked with General Pants and like kind of just got back on the life wagon there. And that lasted for a little while. My brother, who's 6 years older than me, Ben, and classic big brother, it's like, mate, you got to get your life sorted out, got to get a career. And he at that point had got into coffee and was working with Toby's Estate Coffee, which at that time was like the apex of coffee roasting. They were one of the real pioneers of specialty coffee in Australia. And he said, you got to get your life sorted out. And I said, oh, yeah, easy for you to say, classic younger brother kind of attitude. And mum and dad were moving away, which meant my free rent was going, and I became my brother's problem. So I was all of a sudden living in my brother's garage. And thanks, mum and dad, but, they had to do what they had to do. And so he got pretty motivated for me to get work because I was living in his garage.
As you do.
And and so I thought we were good mates, but he wanted me to get out there. And so he got this job opportunity offered to him in coffee, which was importer of Italian espresso machines, like the top end ones. Back then, it would have been like $3,500 machines, and
For home use or
for home,
cafes?
yeah.
Yeah.
And they had a cafe side as well, but their real big seller was this beautiful home machine called the Giotto, and it's a wonderful machine still today, called Rockets now. But he got offered this job, and he lied to the guys and said, "Oh, I can't take it because I'm really enjoying my work at Toby's Estate, but my brother is totally into coffee machines." And so he called me up and said, "You've got a job interview tomorrow. It's in North Shore, Sydney. Here's a blog to read, like an article to understand, to learn about it." So I crammed about, and I was up for it. I was like, well, I need a job. And so I then, moved my life down to Sydney, got the job, aced the interview, worked with some of the best people. And it was a small business. There's about 5 of us that were working there. Really, and to this day, still really close friends with my then boss, Charles, and kind of saw that's where I kind of felt like I began to get my work ethic and my love for coffee. Like all of a sudden I went from just being the casual coffee cafe drinker to I had to make an incredible cup of coffee, because when people would come in to test our machines, the sales pitch is, this machine is going to make you incredible coffee. So my skills had to really go up. So every opportunity I got, I'd go down to the showroom, make everyone a cup of coffee, hence the high addiction of 14 cups. Then from there, the business succeeded. It had some challenges, and I learned what it was like to see a small business owner under pressure, a whole supply chain dried up, and really, as best as I could, really tried to help navigate through that, and we did. We got through it. And then my brother started to get the itch to start his own business. And we were in the same industry, the same vein. We saw a big gap in the market on the Central Coast. At that point, there wasn't a specialty coffee roaster, and at all. All the good coffee came from Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane. And we looked at it and went, let's give it a red hot crack.
Despite experiencing the pressures of the small business that you'd gone through in the years earlier.
Yeah, and it was a good business, and still is. My boss is a classic loyalist. He had one brand. So the one machine that he imported was his brand in the country. So it's like, it's like importing, a certain one product and use everything, all your eggs in one basket. You brand yourself that product, and it's like, and that's the kind of person he is, and I really admire him. But that whole supply chain dried up overnight.
And he had no other product.
And he had no other product. Yeah, so that was, and weird, that was kind of where I discovered some of my skill sets. Was I'd just stay there till 11 at night, finding new products, just figuring out how to do it. And I was, at that age, I was 21 years old, and I learned what it was to kind of sweat for a business, you know what I mean? And get in there and put the hard work in. And he is a hard worker. Classic Charles, we would all get to work at 8 in the morning, and then it would get to 7 at night, and you'd try to sneak out of the office without him noticing, and you go, "Chriso, are you going home?" And he'd look at his watch, and he goes, "Oh, I guess then, no worries. See you tomorrow then." right? And he was a hard worker, but a great guy, but a hard worker. And I think I learned a couple of lessons in that as well. Of like, if you want to make something work, like it's just not going to happen 9 to 5. It's just not going to happen like super cruisy. You got to be willing to dig in and sweat a bit. So yeah, I learned a lot there, and I think that was the thing. Got to the point of I am ready to roll the dice, and I knew that if it didn't work, Charles would have me back. Like that was my other kind of backup. Was I knew Charles would take me back. Like we really got along well, and so I thought kind of safe enough to give it a red hot crack.
Wow. So you make the move. Just for everybody's sake, explain roasting. Just to understand it, just in a short version.
Short version of roasting is we receive coffee that's been was originally from a fruit. It's a seed of a fruit. The fruit's removed. The seed is dried. So it's kind of similar to like if you imagine like a sultana with a big, huge, hard seed in it. That's what a coffee bean kind of is like once it gets dried out. All of the fruit's removed. It gets dried out to like it actually looks like and feels like a stone. And it's impervious and really like you can't chew it. It's like trying to chew rocks or pebbles. We get all these things exported from overseas, imported to our factory, and we receive them there. And it's similar to like a popcorn kernel. At that point, if like by definition you apply heat to it, is what we do in the roasting process. We apply heat, heat, and then eventually, in a moment, it cracks. And it's this magic reaction called pyrolysis, where like hundreds of thousands possibly of chemical reactions all happen in a couple of seconds. And that's where like in popcorn, pop, 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 it just goes soft from this hard little rock to this soft, fluffy thing. And so coffee does the same thing. So it cracks, and it's not, and it's then at that point, it's like it can be crushed. But before you could actually you could wheel around trolleys on it. It's like it's fine. So the coffee, that's kind of what coffee roasting is. And then our job is to blend it appropriately to make sure it gets the right flavors, and then we deliver that in a certain time frame to whoever's going to use the coffee.
When we say blend, what does that mean? And how is your blend different to Toby's Estate?
Yeah, well, the main thing is the ingredients that you use. So coffee is a real worldwide commodity. You've got different countries that produce it. Certain countries are better at producing it than others because of the natural climate. They've got an advantage. Generally, countries that are around the equatorial belt have a huge advantage. So like countries like Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Brazil, and like Ethiopia on the other side of the world in Kenya, really good coffee growing regions, Tanzania. And so they're all kind of in that hot zone, and they have to have high altitude. So we get a whole bunch of those, and then and then they come in different grades. So depending on the grade of coffee you choose can generally dictate the quality. But then really what you're doing is you're grabbing all these different ingredients, and sometimes they're the same. So Toby's and I might have like crossover, like on the same beans in our blend. Depending on the ratios we use of them and the style in which we roast them, we're going to get different flavor beans.
So a single origin, not a blend?
Not a blend.
Right.
Yep.
It's from one place, and when you roast it, there's nothing else going in.
Absolutely. And single origin could be, again, that's a wide range. Single origin could be just Ethiopia coffee, like from a certain region. But then we've even gone down now to what we call like micro lot, where it's one farmer, it's one crop. And with the internet these days, it's been a huge advantage for us to provide feedback to the growers. And also it's been quite socialist in some kind of ways because the grower's been able to see how much we sell the product for, like over the years, and gone, holy mackerel.
Yes.
Like I should be charging more for my product.
Yeah.
Which is incredibly amazing for the industry because most sourcing sides of in most businesses that source, industries that source all around the world, there's always opportunity for corruption. And the coffee industry has fought really hard over the last 15 years of trying to eliminate systemic corruption in the industry. And where we are now as to where we were is just chalk and cheese. We've made a lot of progress. So
very good. So, we know that you know how to make a good coffee bean. You know how to create good flavors. How do you run a good business? How do you start it? How do you market it? All those sorts of things. Because it's you could be the best at what you do and have a terrible business. So talk us through that process.
Well, yeah, I mean, like technically, we don't have the best business in the world. by any stretch of the imagination, or even in the coffee industry. And that's, we run a good business, but 2019, we roasted a coffee for a coffee competition called the Golden Bean, which has international reach as well. And there's an North American one and an Australian one. And my brother Ben, he is a freak of a coffee taster. And that is a thing. Coffee has more discernible flavors than wine, and whiskey and all those things. So coffee is actually, I think it's only second to tea. And I could be wrong on that stat as well. It could be the other way around. But coffee is so sensory and there's so much potential flavors. And my brother Ben is one of the best flavor tasters there is. He is brilliant. So he's always run our blends, and he's also always designs that stuff. And but he designed the blend in 2019, and we called it Walking on Sunshine because it was like walking on sunshine. It was like tropical kind of flavors, like big, bright, but still earthy. Anyway, and we just submitted it in a competition, and we ended up winning the competition, which that's great. But someone wins it every year, so or whatever. But
you won that year, so
we won that year, so that was good. And you go, oh wow, we won, and it was a big deal. But when we looked at the scoring sheet, we realised that to that date in all competitions, if you appropriate the scales and the different scoring methods, we had created the best scored coffee of all time. So much so that it was reviewed 3 times because of the incredibly high score it was given. Right, and we go, wow, this is going to change our business. We've got the best product in the world. We've nailed it. Admittedly, it's not something we could actually afford to supply cafes. Right, it was just a really show off incredible coffee. It helped our business, but it doesn't mean just having the right product and the best product isn't going to necessarily mean that everything's going to change for us. We've had to commit to some hard lessons over life. We've had to commit to learning, and we've had to commit to growing. We've had to commit to changing, even when people when you just kind of want to do the same thing you did last year, that should be a bit of a warning sign for you as going, am I actually becoming a better business owner? Am I growing in the way that I treat my staff? Am I growing in the way that I improve systems? So for me, when we started off, marketing probably wasn't that important. Debt collection was. That was the first thing for us. The first hard lesson we learned was business partnership. We partnered with another group, and we're friends with that group again today, but there was a really hard lesson of we had to go our separate ways in our first 12 months with our business partners, and that was really challenging.
Why is that? I mean, I don't want to delve into it too much,
sure.
but why did you have to separate?
It was, so they were based out of another city, and we'd paid money to be a part of a group. And for us then it was $25,000, and it was real serious investment. They didn't really come to the party on providing some of the promises that they said they would. They came to the party on the equipment. There was some equipment there, and but for that 12 months, I didn't earn a cent, and we're technically business owners, unemployed, putting any sales that we get into some kind of another bank account that we had no access to, and I wasn't getting paid because I was a shareholder. And so I'm just growing the business to the point where I was with one of my shareholders, the main guy, up in this other city, and I'd sold everything. I didn't have a car anymore. And so I was in his spare car, and he'd given me the keys to the car to drive back. And like I said, there's no bad blood now, but I was standing there and I was really uncomfortable, and he's looking at me, he goes, "Why are you uncomfortable? Just take the car." And I said to him, "It's a 5-hour drive and I don't have money for fuel. I got nothing." And he's like, "Oh, what? Oh, go get some money out of the ATM." I was at that point of, I'm busting my guts. I'm working all week and I'm getting nothing for it. And so things had to change in that scenario. And
in hindsight, could you have done it without that group?
I think it gave us the confidence to start. We were trying to do it without them. And then again, you've got to be really careful in terms of when you've got a business idea of actually who you go to. And it's all worked out and that's fine. But I remember we were just trying to buy a piece of equipment off someone, and we ended up in a business deal with them. We ended up in partnership. You know what I mean? Like we never sat down and gone, what's our strategy? What's our 10-year vision and plan for the company? Like what outcomes are we trying to get? All of a sudden we're giving someone $25,000 and we're in partnership. And so look, I mean, we ended up in a really beneficial outcome. Had to like learn a couple of lessons, take a few brave steps and have some big conversations. And in the end, my ambition with that was to make it right with them, because there was a couple of years that was difficult and we didn't like each other much. But then 2 years later, we gave them the equipment back and said, you can have the equipment. We want this to be good long term. And so it was like big lessons, and to both parties' credit, ours and theirs, we're all really good friends again, like over the years. But yeah, it was tricky. I think it gave us the necessary confidence, and even to some degree, I'm not sure if I carried the motivation that was required, even being in a small business beforehand, to get out there and work the product. But I had the fear of this guy that was more experienced in business kind of making sure he'd call me up. Where are you going today? What are you doing? Oh gosh, I just rolled out of bed. Like, I'm starting a business, man. Like, just chill out. Like, I'm going to go to the beach first, and then I'm going to like go do some work. Like, now he drove me like potentially into the ground. Like, but I think we got out just at the right time. And from there, at that point, we had some coffee on hand. We had a factory bay with a lease, which we accepted liability for the lease in exchange for something else. And because we'd gone separate ways, the company dissolved. And so we had a handful of customers, and I needed a bit more coffee to make orders, but I had no money. And so I called up our suppliers, and our suppliers are always cash on COD, right? And so it's like, and I had to beg them again. I said, look, I've got 150 kilograms of customers, like of kilos that are going out this week. I need a couple of bags of coffee. I will pay you as soon as I'm paid. I drove around the cafes, I reckon 7 times that weekend to make sure I got every last bit. So we could pay the bill, and then from there on, we were away. But at that point, so Glee Coffee at its truest inception, I had about $500 left. And so we just committed to the customers we had, and off we went.
Yeah, and that's the thing in business, a lot of people, I think something like 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. You could have.
Absolutely.
You could have just gone, I've got nothing left. I can't afford fuel, or this is too hard, or, I don't
Charles
have
will take
machinery.
me back.
Yeah, Charles will take me back.
Well, my friend said to me, my best mate said to me, he goes, you're an idiot. He's like, you are not wired for business. Like you are the last person I would ever think could actually do this. And he like meant very well. He says, I want you to call Charles back and go and say you're sorry and go back and work for him, because you can't do it. And I was like, and that really motivated me
To make it work.
It really did.
Is that like even, going back to the school days, I don't like this. I'm walking out. I'm throwing my phone in the bin, whatever it may be. This was like your screw you moment. I'm going to plow on through. And as you say, it was the motivation and the kick in the guts to kind of go, well, no, I'm not going to see Charles. I'm going to make this work.
I think I'm authority defiant. Like I still feel that today in some other areas of my life. I still, when authority really tries to flex on me, a part of me just wants to like not be controlled. And so, that's something you got to channel, I guess, like, and not let it limit you. But if you can let it be a maximizer in your life, I think most of the time I've been able to do that. Been able to find the balance of not just throwing the towel in, but using it to motivate me to go forward. Those were the kind of big things I was wrestling with. And I mean, growing up, I'm the most disorganized person there is. And again, like in terms of making business grow, probably my default personality would be I'd be more into like creative marketing and stuff. I've had to adapt and become a person of systems and a person of processes and a person of managing money. Like that was, and it's what I'm more passionate about is things like music and art and I love coffee because of the sensory side of it as well. But if I want the business to grow, I just can't float around with a beret on my head, just like high-fiving everybody. Like, you have to, take responsibility, get into the driver's seat and learn the skills you got to learn, or staff the skills if you're fortunate enough to be able to afford someone to come in and staff those weaknesses.
So you talk, the 4 Ps of marketing. Let's go old school, uni days, right? So product, nailing it, award winning, right?
Yep.
Now, another one is price. We'll get to that, but promotion, branding, all those sorts of things. How have you done that? And was there a sort of a thought process to nail that promotion part?
Sure, yeah. Both my brother and I are quite creative, and he always took a bit of extra lead on that, and has to this day has done an incredible job with our brand. I even remember our first brand, which was like this. He was the guy that chose Glee. So I'm like, oh, it's so, like, our name's Gleason, and so it's from our family name, but I'm like, is it a little bit on ourselves to be calling it after us? And, at that point we're like, no, Glee, it's really cool. That's a great name. And then dead set 2 months later, Glee, the musical show, comes to Australia. And I'm like, we need to change our name. Like, Ben, we need to change our name. I'm so ashamed. I'm like, I'm embarrassed. And he's like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to us. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, the show sucks, like, whatever, and he's like, I like the show. He's like, it's going to make the word Glee more memorable and easy for people to say. And he's like,
when they're not even talking about you, they're talking about
that's
you.
right. And he goes, and the show will go and we'll still be here.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, mate. So it was a good coincidence. And so he kind of handled that, and then that evolved a bit over the years. We had certain staff members that were good in that angle, and they helped us maybe take a step forward. My wife actually wouldn't say that she's a very good designer, but she's just got that natural flair to be able to know what she likes and not like, and so she really, in terms of that presentation of the product and all that stuff, she really handles that and does a great job. And so, and again, that's a rabbit warren I could get lost in, and probably being hyper creative. If I was allowed, or if my partners allowed me to go in there, I'd probably get a good outcome. But it would take me 2 years to actually get in there and get in that zone where, for me, it's like, I focus more on the product and on how we actually how the business runs. It's my sweet spot.
It's important to stay in your lane. Like, you could do that. You could do other things.
But it would take you longer than everyone else.
Well, it just dilutes everything you do because you don't have time. So
Absolutely.
champion that and stay in your space and dominate it. But
And enjoy what other people make.
yeah.
Like, every art appreciator wants to be an artist. And it's like, what? Like, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. And that's why it takes so long. But just sit back and enjoy someone else's beautiful work.
So product's good, brand's good. Yep. Obviously, from a social media point of view, you do really well. You got good reach. Tell me about price. Price is, it's a commodity product, really.
Yeah, 100%.
As much as you're one coffee, everyone's got the best coffee.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the things I do is I train people in sales and I make them sell me a coffee.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
That's awesome.
typically there's milk, there's sugar, there's caffeine. It's all pretty similar. So the point of difference, there needs to be a point of difference, which is usually the consumer, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, all that aside, but price, how did you get around that obstacle of commodity product?
Yeah, well, we wouldn't be around it, to be honest. It's still a huge determining factor in how well our business is going, because we generally sell our main business is that we sell to cafes. So we wholesale to cafes. That's our major business. And so most of our customers, we're on a fixed price. So recently we did have to do a price rise on a couple of our products on the website for retail. And that's as easy as literally me logging into Shopify with consultation with a couple of our team members and going, we got to lift the price of these products. They're losing money. Done. Wholesale is a whole different ballgame. These are people's livelihoods, not their Sunday cup of joe that they can have or not. Like, this is small businesses, medium-sized businesses, so that are fixed in on long-term prices. And so when our prices go up, we have to really cautiously navigate how do we stay viable and how do we maintain the relationships and the promises that we've made to businesses. And so that for us has always been a real trick, and we've over the years we've absorbed a lot of cost, and so that's recently last year we did our first major price rise for our cafes, and that was and what really pushed us to that point is that the price we were paying when we first started our business in 2008 and the price that we're paying now for us to actually buy the product has actually more than doubled. And so there's been many iterations of that over the years, many fluctuations over that in the years, but there's good reason for why it has doubled. And when we looked at the state of the world economy and the coffee economy worldwide, something had to change. There was farmers that were, because of a language barrier or an education barrier, being exploited, and unknowing to a lot of coffee roasters and cafes and coffee drinkers, unknowingly there was a huge population. Coffee is one of the biggest commodities in the world, second to oil, most traded commodity, and I don't know how clean oil is either, but
doesn't taste as good.
Yes, doesn't taste as good. That's right. But there was just systemic corruption in there, and so the prices had to become transparent. Movements like Fair Trade, Rainforest Alliance came in and really started to expose a lot of the corruption that was there. And so in turn, as coffee roasters that are, we're nothing without the coffee growers. Like, I can't grow it. Like, we can't grow it to the quality that we need to and to the quantity that we need to service Australia. We can't actually do that in Australia. You either got to get one thing. We could get the quantity, but we wouldn't get the quality. And so we had to change our mindset and go, we're going to be the coffee generation that actually redirects the money and the spend to where it's needed most and where it's to some degree deserved most. And so then it comes across through our hands, and we really did our best to just absorb that gradually, because there's a slow moving dial. Every year it would go up a couple of dollars. Okay, gosh. But then recently we just had an enormous Brazil experience, 3 seasons of frost, which they're the dictator of the world price. If Brazil's price is X, then everyone is X plus something. And so then Brazil's price went through the roof. And then by the way the market works, every other coffee that we purchased just skyrocketed.
You didn't just ditch Brazil and go Ethiopia.
We couldn't, because Ethiopia is more expensive than Brazil.
Than Brazil anyway. Wow.
It's the baseline, because it's the largest coffee growing, Arabica growing nation in the world. And so if Brazil, for example, kind of comes in at the pound, which is how it all still works, thanks America. But if it comes in at the pound at $1.30 for the pound, then everything else is scaled up above off the $1.30 for the pound. And then, so Brazil went gangbusters, like almost doubled in price, because Brazil has over the years have always had like a secret reserve of buffer coffee, like years of backup, and the backup got exhausted.
Yeah, wow.
And then they had frost again, and then it was, it was mental. So we had to pass that on this time, and that was a really big business decision for us, one of the trickiest ones we had to navigate. But to be really honest, 13 years of not really doing a price rise, like maybe a little one here and there, I was overwhelmed by the response that small to medium-sized businesses that we service, they were so accommodating. Some of them said, we were waiting for this, like we knew it was coming, and because we could see it happening, we could read the news, and so we're like, man, as a business owner, you can labor over that fear of price, pricing you out of the market or pricing you out of a good position, but you got to be really confident. I believe that most people want you to actually do okay. They don't want to haggle you down till you've got nothing left. And if you come across that kind of customer relationship, maybe that's not the right relationship for you to be engaging in. It's a small business
recognising that you were also a small business.
Yeah.
How fair is it though? You got to have your fair share of value, value to be a supplier, to be a roaster, whatever it may be. How inelastic or elastic is your product, where to the point where a cafe says, I can't go with you anymore, I need to go to someone else, because ethically sourced, really important.
Yep.
Speed of supply, quality product. Have you thought at what point do they bypass that and go, that's cool, but we need to run a business?
Yeah.
Like, what's the determining, or what's the deciding number or percentage that changes that? And that's an ongoing battle for any business.
It's different, like for everyone. So it comes back to their business values, really does. And some businesses have clear values and others don't. And so then they're trying to, if you don't have clear values for making those decisions, then you end up in a weird kind of vortex of just trying to improve your position. But if you know what your values are, so I said one customer, we moved them on to a different product because they refused to do the price rise. And so that was one of our potential angles, that if you want to remain on Glee Coffee, you will need to accept this price rise, but we do have a coffee that is priced more affordably, that admittedly has a different style of bean in there. So instead of Arabica, it's got Robusta, which is something that's more easily grown around the world. But we just don't prefer the flavour. So it doesn't live in Glee Coffee land. And so we were able to move a couple of customers onto a different position to support their value. And they're like, can't do it. But then one other guy we spoke with recently, and we said, because we're trying to review our whole sales approach and how do we do that well with cafe owners. What do cafe owners want in a coffee roaster? So we're kind of in that zone for the last couple of months. We sat down with a guy who is a standout cafe in Newcastle. And we're friends. He doesn't use our coffee. I just went there with a sales guy and me, and we just had a chat to him. I said, could we just chat to you for a couple of minutes, ask you a couple of questions? We're not trying to get your business. Literally, I'm asking you because you're an ideal kind of customer for us. Could we get some feedback? The guy was so lovely. We sat down for 40 minutes.
Very smooth.
Very smooth. But I genuinely wasn't, right? Genuinely.
You wanted to pick his brain.
I did, because he embodies the kind of customer that I'd like to attract. And probably the real top of the pack. And I said, so you use this other coffee supplier, la la la. So why is that? He immediately had his list of we share similar values. We really like their branding. We really like their quality. And then all this kind of stuff. And then he said, and we said, okay, so you wouldn't change then? He says, no, there's no reason why I would change. And my friend said to him, he said, well, what if we could give you the exact same quality coffee at half the price? And I'm like, it's going to be interesting. And the guy goes, I wouldn't change. And we're like, whoa, okay, so why? And he says, I'm not trying to make cash flow decisions. He says, my main objective in the business is to sell my business for the most amount of money at the end. So he says, I'm selling my books. And he says, and I'm also selling something that people would desire to buy. He says, so the kind of products I have on my shelf and the kind of things, I want them to come in and feel like they couldn't buy this anywhere else. And I also want them to look at my books and see the areas where I could be saving money. He says, I'm not going to make a money-based decision. And he says, at the end of the day, I want to sell a business that people just desire to buy and they don't care what the price is. And so if they want to get a good value business, they can go find a bunch of them. But this one's the crown jewel. And I was like, he had his values sorted. So it's like, even if a better price came along, you're not talking his language. So yeah, pricing is important, but I think it just varies from customer to customer, what they're trying to achieve.
So we've talked about those three areas, product, price, promotion. The final one, which is probably a good one to talk about, is through the battle of place.
Yeah.
We talked about setting up on the Central Coast, the successes of that, but then you decide to set up in Queensland.
Yeah.
Scale. Let's scale. It must be better. That equals more profits, but it doesn't.
Yeah, scale's complex, and I think every failure has a silver lining if you can catch it before it catches you. The story around that is we were doing quite well. At that point, we have a wholesale roasting business, which is moving along well. And we have part of our strategy then was kind of setting up key cafes of our own to kind of help get the end user excited about Glee Coffee Roasters, and then they'd go check out our wholesale accounts, and then they'd be excited to go to a cafe. Oh, we're using Glee, great. I drink Glee at the Glee store. I'm like, cool, great, awesome. Like, just trying to get a little bit of brand awareness. That was working well. We had 2 stores, both on the Central Coast. We'd had one before in Derby Street, which was a really beautiful / weird, time of our lives. But at that point we had 2 stores, and I think we just shut down Derby Street because we come to the end of our lease and wasn't working with the landlord. And this opportunity popped up, which is up in Brisbane, and out of the blue, and we're like, oh wow! I knew the location. It was a Factory Bay coffee roaster with a coffee bar right in Brisbane, Brisbane South, and it was like, this is a killer spot. And I'd been there; it was busy. We really just leapt into that opportunity. We heard it was available, and we went, "This is going to be great. Glee Coffee is going to expand into another state." And off we went. We had a pretty strong management team. I'd say at that point, some really good cafe managers working for us, and we had a really good wholesale kind of team as well. To some degree, this is where we went to our biggest staffing setup. So at that point, by the time this cafe was set up, and we also decided to take on another one at the same time in Mayfield, which was a wicked little space, and all of a sudden we had 68 staff. We started paying incredible amounts of rent every week. We started paying incredible amounts of suppliers every week, and also what was it? What's that? I've actually erased it out of my mind because I was so traumatized by it. It's when the government charges you money because you've got a certain amount of staff.
Payroll tax.
Payroll tax. And
the joys of payroll tax.
What the heck is payroll tax?
I'm employing more people. You should be rewarding
You should
me.
be helping me out here. And we're just getting slammed. Anyway, and so in the middle of it, one of the cafes was doing great. We sold it. It was our Erina cafe. It did really well. And so we were like, oh, cool. This is our first payday as a business. We're really this is great. We're doing well. We put a bit of money onto some bills and stuff like that, and also took some ourselves, paid down some stuff, as you do. It's not all cream. And then all of a sudden, about 2 months later, I wasn't in the finances at all. I was in just making sure our business ticked. I'm just oh, we can't pay for that. We don't have the money for that. Oh, Lauren, I was going, hang on, what's going on here? We've slipped. Something's gone wrong, and we've just And so, but my kind of personality is once I get curious in something, I just completely knuckle down on it. And so I pulled out the books, got into Xero, and started, burrowing away in there, and discovered that I reckon we were probably about 6 to 7 weeks away from being cut off from one of our major supplier, and being unable to pay for the stuff. And this is about probably 10 years into business. And so we're going, oh my gosh. So we looked at it and went, the only way we can do this, Brisbane was costing us thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every week.
So that's where you were bleeding.
Big time.
If you didn't have Brisbane, you wouldn't have been weeks away from closure.
Not at all. No, we were in a glorious place. We overextended, and then we also had to change our staffing arrangements. The original intention of our key staff was to support the Brisbane adventure, and that kind of unfolded and wasn't the case. It didn't work for them. And so all of a sudden we're having to add on more managers up there, more key staff, and we were just overcapitalized, overextended, and we had to get out. And we pretty much had to get out overnight. And the lesson for me in that is really you got to make sure, we had to make sure, we've always done it now, that we're regularly reviewing our position. Not just enjoying the glory year that you're in, because it can be the best year of your life for your business, but actually you could be going in the wrong direction.
You hadn't noticed the impact Brisbane was having.
Absolutely.
Hats off to you though, because I can't remember what it's called, the Boston Matrix or something like that, where it's room for innovation. So you allocate time, you allocate money, and you either develop a star or a dog. In this case, you developed a dog, but what you did do, most people push on through, but you went, no, this is a dog, let's cut it. sorry to use that expression.
Yeah,
it's
no.
actually scholarly article, that one.
Yeah.
But it's a dog and you cut
Yeah.
it, but it means that you live to fight another day.
Absolutely.
You lick your wounds, you head off in a new direction or batten down the hatches. But you've battened down the hatches, but you actually have a more successful business from that, because I think you
Absolutely.
said 6 staff now instead of 68 or something stupid like
Yeah,
that.
not including directors.
Yeah.
In our company, we've got 6 staff, and
That's far more doable, is it?
far more doable. And you realize your limits, like
No payroll tax.
no payroll tax. we had 4 cafes. Another one we shut during COVID, the one in Mayfield, and then recently we had one more Glee coffee store that we sold to an incredible. We actually sold the Erina store and the Wyong store to the same person about 2 years apart, because she was really doing well with the Erina store, loving it. Her name's Christina Carlson. She's a legend. And
So do you have cafes at all now?
I don't own a cafe.
You just roast.
Yeah, we've got one physical location where we roast, and we do have a place where you can come and cellar the coffee.
Yeah.
But that's it. It's no food, anything like that.
And is that the future for Glee? Do you think you're out of cafes for a while?
Yeah, we kind of structured it that way. There was some, and to be respectful to the person that bought the business of us as well, we agreed to non-competes and stuff for a certain period of time, and we actually also, as we signed those documents, are like, this is good for us as creative adventurers.
Yeah.
This is good
Let's
for us to have
consolidate our
This
effort.
means we never go
can't
back there.
do this, right? Like,
We've learnt our lessons
And so-
4 times over.
and we went, let's just do this. So, and look, we did really well out of those cafes.
Well, and to be fair, they are clearly good cafes,
They're
2 of
brilliant.
them, because someone wanted to buy them.
Absolutely.
Right?
And
No one wanted Mayfield or Brisbane, that's fine.
And it says something when someone buys one thing off you. And so when I called her up to say, hey, we're considering moving the next one, this is about 2 years after, she's like, I want it. Like, yes. Like, and she still uses the brand Glee Coffee, and she does an incredible job with it. And we want to focus on our product, our wholesale relationships. We love working with startups. Like, one of the fun facts with us is about 90% of our wholesale customers, we were there on their first day. I was just it's a ritual. It's like for me, it's sacrosanct. Like, when we've got somebody using our product, I don't care if they're going to be the best cafe in the world or it's a little like startup combi with a coffee machine in it. I want to be there when they open. Like, and we've always found that's what's worked for us. Like, and so we did that yesterday. A cafe up in Cessnock called Arthur's. First day, 2 guys just launching an incredible cafe up there in Cessnock City.
They've chosen Glee Coffee.
They've chosen Glee, and lunchtime, I'm up there eating their brisket toasty, having a cup of coffee, making sure they've got everything they need, and that's just always been our niche. And for us to go out to that big 60-something staff, and you've got managers of this and managers of that, and it's like, oh, maybe that's not why we created the company. And really, we come back to it. We wanted to be the master of our own little domain. And we wanted to, solve a problem that the Central Coast and Newcastle were facing, which was a lack of specialty coffee, and provide really good support for that. So I feel like we've gone back to grassroots.
Well, it's quite the domain. We can't wait to see what the next 10 years have in store. Congratulations on finding your way and being in the percentage that does survive. It really is a
Yeah.
great story. So thanks for being part of the podcast.
All good. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.